In you, O Lord, I seek refuge. Do not let me ever be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me.
Incline your ear to me. Rescue me speedily. Be a rock of refuge for me, a strong fortress to save me.
You are indeed my rock and my fortress. For your name's sake, lead me and guide me.
Take me out of the net that is hidden for me, for you are my refuge.
My times are in your hand. Deliver me from the hand of my enemies and persecutors.
Let your face shine upon your servant. Save me in your steadfast love.
Gracious God, you come to us as a suffering servant. You come to us with deep solidarity and self-sacrificing love. You come to us and share our fear, our worry, our grief, our sickness, our suffering, our sorrow. You join us in mortality that we might join you in immortality. You join us in isolation that we might join you in community. You join us even in death, that we might join you in resurrection. By your grace, plant your mercy so deeply within our hearts that we glow with its radiance, even when the storm clouds gather and the shadows lengthen. For you are our light, the light of the world, and we pray in your name. Amen.
A reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 13. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. "For this reason," he said, "not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another."
Gathered at a table on a hot and dusty night. They ate fresh bread and drank new wine in flickering candlelight. Then their host took up a towel, brought water clear and sweet. "Take off your sandals, let me wash your feet." First he went to Simon Peter, who shook his head and said, "Lord, you will never wash my feet. I should wash yours instead." "Peter, let me touch you. Listen, I implore. If you won't take this gift, how can I give you more?" To Judas, said, "Brother, how I love you. I know you will betray me, but I think no less of you. Do quickly that which you must do, and love each other as I have loved you." The cool of the water, the roughness of the linen, the touch of his fingers, an end, a beginning. Well, now he kneels before me, and I fidget awkwardly. See, I'm supposed to serve him, and now he's serving me. not sure I deserve this. It's hard to comprehend. He smiles and says, I love you to the end.
On the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover? He said, Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, The teacher says, My teacher is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples. So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared a Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. And they became greatly distressed and began to say to one another, Surely not, Lord. He answered, The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born. Judas, who betrayed him, said, Surely not I, Rabbi. He replied, You have said so.
Then Jesus said to them, You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee. Peter said to him, Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you. Jesus said to him, Truly, I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you. And so said all the disciples.
Jesus came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not come into the time of trial." Then he followed from them about a stone's throw, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared to him and gave him strength. In his anguish he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling on the ground.
They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough! The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners."
While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrival with him was a long crowd with sword and clubs from the chief of priests and the elders
of the people. Now the Colonel had given them a sign saying, "The one I will kiss is the man." Harassed him. At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, brothers," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid their hands on Jesus and harassed him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drawing it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword."
Then they seized Jesus and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You are also one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then about an hour later, still another kept insisting, "Surely this man was also with him, for he's a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Luke. Pilate then called together the chief priests, the leaders, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was parading the people, and here I have examined him in your presence, and has not found this man guilty of any of your charges against him. Neither had Herod, for he sent him back to us. Indeed, he has done nothing to deserve death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." Then they all shouted out together, Away with this fellow! Release Barabbas for us. This was a man who has been put in prison for an insurrection that has taken place in the city, and for murder. Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify! Crucify him!" A third time he said to them, "Why? What evil have he done? I have found in him no ground for the sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and then release him." But they kept urgently demanding with loud shout that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate gave his verdict that their demand shall be granted. He released the man they asked for, the one who has been put in prison for insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as they wished.
Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail the King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it.